Hello, everyone. Welcome to CXO Spice. CXO Spice is a platform for thought leaders to share their point of view on innovation and explain how to make it happen in real world. Today's topic is securing the future of work. Our special guest is Sarah Burkhart, Senior Director, Software and Experience Product Management at Dell Technologies. Hello, Sarah. Welcome to CXO Spice.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
So in the wake of pandemic, over 8.6 million Americans embraced occupational shifts, and the looming specter of automation powered by generative AI suggests that by 2030, up to 30% of current working hours could be entrusted to our silicon counterparts. So I'm thrilled to have Sarah here today with us to dive deeper around this topic. But before we dive into our discussion, Sarah, could you share your tech journey and the specific business area you lead within Dell?
Absolutely. Happy to do so. So I've been at Dell for almost 13 years now, which seems crazy to consider. Sometimes it feels like yesterday. Before I joined Dell, and honestly throughout the majority of my career, I've been focused on the intersection of hardware and software, and very specifically product management that delivers software that enables hardware experiences. So that's the role that I'm currently in at Dell. My team is responsible for what we refer to as software and experiences for the client portion of our organization. And so when I say client, I mean the PCs that Dell makes. And the experiences range from things like your audio quality to maybe we have some unique icons on the touchpad that light up when you're participating in a Zoom or a Teams call, to sustainability is also an experience. Security and manageability, device enablement, all of those fall within my team's responsibilities. And the scope and overall lifecycle management includes everything from charting a multi-year horizon for where Dell wants to take those experiences into the future, to then implementing them, getting them through the development process, delivering them on the devices that need specific experiences to facilitate for their particular users, and then certainly the overall lifecycle management, end of life, and replacement with new capabilities. So quite a broad scope that I think will lend itself well to this conversation.
Well, fascinating journey, Sarah. I'm so glad we have you here. Now, let's get into the heart of our discussion. So what are the most sophisticated techniques and modern threats that attackers employ today?
Sure. I think the thing that we're seeing a lot of is AI being used to really make malicious code more capable of being deployed within an environment. So I'll take the example of a phishing email, which is a very common way for the malicious actors to get code into an environment. And what we have trained employees on, and we talk to our customers about this, is, train your employees to look out for warning signals like misspelled words in a phishing email. Well, the malicious actors are using AI to reduce those warning signals, making those threats even more pervasive than they might have been. It's still the endpoints that are really challenging in an environment, so that hasn't changed. Vast majority of the threats do enter through endpoints, but what AI is doing is making it faster for the malicious actors to iterate on their approach and find things that work effectively on their behalf. And so that's why it's really important for companies to have a zero trust environment in place and be very vigilant about training their employees as well.
Yeah, you made a great point. As a matter of fact, at Chaigang Advisory, we provide assessment. Sometimes organizations don't even know how many endpoints they have, right? They only count internal employees, but don't
Yes.
forget to also count the third-party contractors or suppliers.
Mhm.
So speaking of safeguarding our users, how have customer demands and priorities in terms of security evolved? And then how is Dell addressing these changes?
Yeah, so one of the things that I think about is our advisory council, where we bring in customers across a diverse set of environments. Think of maybe a school district or a grocery store chain or the world's largest airplane manufacturer. All bring them all into a single room, and we talk about what are the things that are challenging in their environment and how can Dell help them better handle those challenges. And security is always one of the most important challenges for our customers. So we understand how critical it is, and it's really led to an expansion in these environments of the dedicated groups focusing on security. So now there are often the end user computing system analysts, right, that are focused on deploying and managing PCs in an environment. And now you have the CISO, the Chief Information Security Officer, and that team. And now they have to coordinate. And that isn't always as smooth of a process as we would like it to be. And ultimately, the end user bears the brunt of some of those coordinations, right? Where the security team wants to run more and more agents to create a more secure environment. And what that ends up doing in some cases is placing more of a burden on the performance of the individual device. And so one of the things that Dell does is try to facilitate the conversations between those organizations and make sure that, for example, the security organization understands that on a Dell PC, our agent on the device has the ability to feed telemetry into like a CrowdStrike Falcon console that provides them with a rich analysis of what's going on in their fleet, so they can take advantage of existing capabilities rather than feeling like their only option is to increase the number of agents on the device. And really it's keeping that end user experience in mind.
Wow, that's profound, right? I mean, that build in and build on capability is so critical. Well, let's pivot to generative AI and machine learning a little bit. Can you elaborate on how Gen AI, machine learning is being leveraged both defensively and offensively in the realm of cybersecurity, and how you observed instances where AI and ML and machine learning enhanced cybersecurity systems' ability to detect and respond to threats in real time?
Sure, absolutely. I think one of the most compelling benefits of machine learning in particular is the speed at which it can enable identifying vulnerabilities through penetration testing, for example, so that the vulnerability can then be remediated. That's probably the most significant advantage. And it's a great opportunity to talk about our forthcoming capabilities around informing security administrators about those vulnerabilities. There's a national database here in the United States that the National Institutes of Science and Technologies, or NIST, maintains with common vulnerabilities and exposures. But many system administrators, many security officers, they may see the list, but they don't know what might exist in their own environment. And so that's a key thing that Dell is working on. We can tell you if you have one of those vulnerabilities in your environment. We can tell you where it is in the environment just because of the telemetry that we're able to capture on our devices. And then we can even tell you how to fix it, right? Because ultimately, you don't just want to know that the smoke alarm is going off. You want to know whether there's actually a fire and how do you put out the fire. And so our ability to not only detect whether those vulnerabilities are in place in that environment, but then also remediate it, that's something that is really critical for an environment. The machine learning role in this case is identifying those vulnerabilities faster so that ultimately we can remediate them before the malicious actors get a chance to capitalize on those vulnerabilities.
Well, that's, being proactive rather than just reactive is the key, right? So as the future work continues to evolve, how is Dell ensuring it remains prepared to meet the evolving needs of its customers concerning security and the adoption of latest generative AI and machine learning technology?
Yeah, it's a fascinating conversation going on right now in the industry. We're certainly having really interesting conversations with our customers and how they plan to deploy AI, as well as how Dell is using it within our own four walls to improve our own business operations. I think from an approach perspective, it actually doesn't change things. We have a pretty well-established approach of looking out at multiple different horizons. Think about like a 10-year horizon, a 5-year horizon, a 3-year horizon, and we identify what are the key trends in the next decade that are really going to impact the experience in personal computing. And then we establish a point of view within Dell about what we think that experience should look like. So think about being able to compute from anywhere and being able to secure in any environment. And then we develop a backcast, right? What are the incubations that we need to be working on today in order to ensure that we arrive at that vision for the future, that North Star, if you will. None of that process has been changed by AI. AI just really weaves into all of those processes. And so as we establish that vision, the areas that we focus on are performance of our devices. Obviously, the sort of most fundamental reason you buy a PC is to do something with that PC. You don't buy it just to secure it. You'd buy it to, be productive or to learn or to play, or sometimes all of the above. And so our devices have to deliver the performance that you would expect. And then in the complexity of working or learning or playing from anywhere, it's actually created a really significant burden on the PC manufacturers to be able to create security and connectivity and power experiences that enable end users to achieve their goals. So we have this very robust process that we are weaving the AI story throughout it. I think the foundation of that story for us is that we want to be first and best with partners, right? And the Dell PC likely has a Windows OS running on it, for example. So we work really closely with Microsoft to understand what their investments are. And then the Dell PC has a chip inside of it that's enabling all of the performance. So we work really closely with Intel, for example, to ensure that we understand how to best architect our devices to get the most performance out of the Intel chipset. So it's a very close relationship that we have with those partners. Then we establish the adjacencies around that first and best with partners. The first is what we like to think of as most intelligent. And that's a theme that we've been building off for several generations now. And what we mean by that is that the device understands your context. Where are you sitting? How secure is your environment? What is the noise like in your environment? What is the lighting like in your environment? What about the connectivity? So all of that leads to the device being able to make decisions or changes based on where the user is in their workflow. The second element of it is the most secure. right? And so that has to weave throughout all of those environments. We have a very rich history of providing security elements built into the device, built on the device, and again, with really compelling partnerships where we build with them to create better security solutions. And then finally, the third piece of the adjacencies is our end-to-end solutions providers. We have a robust consulting service that, for example, we offer cybersecurity consulting services. So many organizations, as they're in their growth curve, right, they start off as a smaller organization, not on anybody's radar, blissfully ignorant of all of the security threats that they may be facing. And then as they achieve successes, then they start to become more vulnerable to attacks. And they may not have the maturity in their organization to know where to start or how to implement the right security tools. And so that's why Dell has commercial services consulting, so that we can help them through that journey. We also have generative AI consulting, right? Because it's not just about implementing, it's about where do you start? What is the right framework to use to identify the most value or the highest threats within your organization? So hopefully that helps you understand how Dell is thinking about AI and how security relates to that overall process.
Absolutely, Sarah. You know, you touched on a few very critical points, right? It's about the user experience, human-centric approach is about a stronger ecosystem, but you know, taking that into a consultative approach, right? AI is just a tool. You know, no matter what you have, you can't just expect that work like magic. So yeah. I really appreciate this conversation. And then, how can organizations effectively balance the advantage of Gen AI or machine learning in the workforce with potential privacy and ethical concerns? You talked about sustainability earlier. You know, Dell is a great example of making that happen. And what advice would you give to other companies who haven't get on the path of balancing them all?
Yeah. Well, first thing that I can say is that it does not happen by accident, right? And the successes that we've achieved at Dell in terms of, for example, all of our commercial PCs ship in fully recyclable packaging and fully recycled packaging. You don't achieve successes like that without being very intentional in your approach, because it takes, in some cases, cost to deliver on that. And you have to align that cost with the business to ensure that everybody understands we're taking on this process in order to deliver this outcome, and the cost to get there is going to have an impact on our business, right? So I think the main thing that I would communicate to anybody who's in their journey around sustainability and security, honestly, they're very similar in the approaches, is that you have to be very intentional about the approach. You have to have a really good understanding of where you are today. That's true for sustainability and security, right? You have to have a baseline understanding of what are your sustainability challenges, and be able to prioritize them. Similarly for security, what are your challenges and what are the highest priority items that you need to tackle right away? And for organizations that feel overwhelmed by that task, because it is a daunting task, especially if I think about some of the companies that we support that are less mature in their IT, because they're just newer companies without as much maturity in IT, we are here to partner with you, right? Because we are such strong believers in the fundamental experiences around sustainability and security. And so you don't have to go it alone. There are lots of resources available. I think it's important to assign somebody to lead it, somebody with authority to lead these initiatives. And that signals to everybody in the environment, whether it's your own employees or your customers. It really assures them that it's something that is a priority for you. And you know, look to your partners for help. And Dell is a great example of a company that has a vested interest in our customers' success. And we do a lot of things to help our customers be successful above and beyond just selling them great PCs, right? And that's a key part of our value proposition, but it's not the only part of our value proposition.
Well, so well said, Sarah. I actually experienced that firsthand at Dell Tech World back in May. And thanks for highlighting that here. So in the dynamic field of cybersecurity, what guidance does Dell offer to companies seeking to build a more resilient future work?
Yeah. So I think the most important takeaway around security is how important a zero trust architecture is. And that is also something that can be an overwhelming task, right? So there's a pretty significant checklist of the things that you would have to do for your environment to be considered zero trust. And, as I mentioned, Dell has consulting services for those companies that don't feel like they have the maturity within their own organization to navigate that checklist on their own. But for companies that do, that checklist of getting to a zero trust architecture is probably the most important thing to focus on from a security perspective now, especially because again, as I mentioned at the beginning, AI is not just for the good people, right? It's also being used by the malicious actors. It's making their ability to penetrate into environments faster. They're more quickly identifying vulnerabilities, and they're refining their tools to make them less detectable. So the zero trust architecture is really critical to it's really critical to understand that breaches will happen, and how you contain those breaches in the environment is really important. And the zero trust architecture is really built to do exactly that. It's really meant to contain breaches within a particular area so that they can be remediated, and that the implications are minimized from those breaches that occur. So zero trust all the way, learn all that you can about it. Dell has lots of resources on zero trust. And again, we have consulting services as well to help organizations get to a zero trust architecture.
That's a salient point, right? The benefit and risk of AI go in tandem. And by the way, I can't wait to compare notes about the consulting framework with you, right? On AI and cyber. So it's great to know that you have a consulting team with experience or with experts who can help the customers. So lastly, looking into the future, what technology trend are you most excited about?
I think what we've been talking about inside of Dell is how impactful AI and the accessibility of AI will be on our workflows. And for me, just a very small example of how I'm using it is, I have regular town halls with my teams, and I used the Microsoft Copilot in the last one. I was hosting the call on Teams, and I used the Teams Copilot, and I looked at the list of action items that were generated as a result of it, the town hall, and boy, it really made it clear to me how many action items I took on in that meeting. So it was really good at holding me accountable to the things that I said, which I think is great, because I always have really good intentions, but sometimes I don't remember all the things that I said I was going to do. So if it can support my memory, right, and not have me to keep it all up here, but keep a running to-do list, man, I could just focus on the tasks versus remembering what was the context behind that task, right? And that's a great example of how I think in my own personal life, AI is going to make my work life easier so that I can focus on the relationships with my peers, my leaders, my team members, and we can really be assured that we are aligned on whether or not we're driving towards the same priorities, and that we really have the customer experience in mind in shaping those priorities. And that's where I think the sweet spot is, right? Being able to offload the more mundane aspects, so we can really dig into where we add value. That's the part that I think is the most exciting to me.
I love that. I also echo what you just said, Sarah. I can talk to you for another hour, but in the interest of time, let me, I really, really appreciate your perspective today. And thank you for sharing your expertise on the evolving landscape of technology, security, and generative AI today. Here are my key takeaways from our conversation. Number one is the human-centric approach, right? Dell prioritized placing humans at the center of every endeavor, striving to create positive experiences through technology. Kudos. And then number two is your proactive security strategy. I love that fact that Dell's forward-thinking teams anticipating future challenges, right? You talk about Michael Dell set up the goal even decade ago. That's fascinating. And then that's, taking the constructive, proactive security strategy that adapt to the evolving nature of work locations. So thank you for doing that. Number three is the integration of AI efficiencies, right? That Dell is dedicated to infusing AI-created efficiencies into your product design, not only to stay competitive, but to enhance the user experience of end users and IT managers, not only the users, but also IT managers. And then I learned from you that every major Dell product line actively incorporates machine intelligence for modern product or solution. And then you also employ machine learning to autonomously manage battery life in client devices. That's driving sustainability, right? So really appreciate that. And the last way, but not the least, is generative AI as an innovative accelerator. Generative AI holds the potential to be the innovation accelerator of the decade or even generation when executed thoughtfully. I appreciate the fact that you leverage that responsibly, and you talk about Dell offers a comprehensive Gen AI solutions portfolio across desktop, data center, cloud, supporting organizations at every stage of their AI journey. So thank you so much for doing that. Thank you for the innovation or being the leader in innovation. And thank you for creating a secure future of work for us. And thank you everyone for joining us today. Stay hungry, stay bold, and stay grateful.